Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4036. Today's date is May 4, 2026. It's been almost like 9:57 p.m. All right. Um, Basically, this thing right now, I was like a like I was having dinner. Okay, and my mother usually watching a serial. Okay, yeah. Well, I usually avoid to watch any kind of like a such thing, but unfortunately is this thing I don't really have any choice because of the summer. There is a one cooler in the living room, and there is a kind of like a TV which is serial is actually on. Well, I don't want it to watch a serial, but I wanted to sit in front of the cooler so that I would get kind of like a little bit of cool thing and that and that. Okay. Then my mother is actually watching a serial. Uh, Name of the serial is Savitri Bai Phule. Okay. Okay. So what is at least this serial? So basically, this serial is about a kind of like a something a person who kind of like a something which is responsible for um, providing an education to a woman in India. Okay, she was the first one, not first one probably, but she is a kind of like a take a kind of like in charge of educating girls, specifically in Maharashtra region. Okay, yeah, in entire India probably, but specifically in Maharashtra. Okay, Savitri Bai Phule. Okay, so this is a kind of like a simply biopic serial about Savitri Bai Phule. Okay, so there is a kind of like in that series. Okay, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule is her husband. Okay, yeah, Savitri Bai Phule is a wife. Okay, now I was kind of like a watching a series, and in that series, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule kind of like a said to Savitribai Phule, okay, that key. Wait, this is like let me Google it. It's a Mati Vina Gati Geli Gati Vina. Like, this is kind of like a really good word. Let me understand. Okay, so Mahatma Phule. Quote in Marathi. Okay, yeah. So this is a kind of like a simply the dialogue. It's not a dialogue. It's actually a kind of like a Mahatma Jyotiba Phule kind of like a literally said. Okay, yeah. What he said. विद्ये विना मती गेली, मती विना नीती गेली, नीती विना गती गेली, गती विना वित्त गेले, वित्त विना शूद्र खचले, इतके सारे अनर्थ एका अविद्येने केले. Okay, let me kind of like assembly remind you again. Let me kind of like assembly phrase you. Okay, I will kind of like assembly explain it properly, but let this understand this stanza and this kind of like a things is like a really beautiful. Okay, विद्ये विना मती गेली, मती विना नीती गेली, नीती विना गती गेली, गती विना वित्त गेले, वित्त विना शूद्र खचले, इतके सारे अनर्थ एका अविद्येने गेले. Okay, so let me tell you the kind of like some exact meaning of this thing. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna kind of like give you context. Okay, if you are from US and Europe, you might not understand what exactly is this thing and that what I just said. Okay, first of all, as I mentioned, Savitri Bai Phule is a woman. Okay, she is the first woman. I'm talking about specifically in Maharashtrian region. Okay, I'm not kind of like a somebody talking about entire India because of that. Ki basically is this thing, this story is actually from 18th centuries. Okay, yeah, 1850 or 18 something on in that period of time. Okay, yeah. And in that period of time, India means like from Afghanistan to Kashmir to Bengal to Myanmar. Okay, like these are kind of like a things. Okay, yeah, from south it's a kind of like a very big India. Okay, yeah. And basically is this thing, the this story, this kind of like a Savitri Bai Phule is actually come from the women. She is actually from Maharashtra. Okay, specifically in Pune region. I am from Maharashtra, and basically is this thing, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and Savitri Bai Phule. There's a lot of influence in Maharashtrian region, and basically is this thing. She is a kind of like a simply person who kind of like encourage women to get education. Okay, yeah. Before that, a woman does not really have any kind of like assembly rights to educate. Okay, yeah. But Savitri Bai Phule kind of like a fought for that, and she kind of like assembly initiate for educating women and things and that and that. Okay, so this is a kind of like a simply Savitri Bai Phule. Okay, now let me tell you one thing. Mahatma Jyotiba Phule. Mahatma Jyotiba Phule is a husband of Savitri Bai Phule. Mahatma Jyotiba Phule is a kind of like a simply a person, okay, and he kind of like a taught Savitri Bai Phule regarding about education. Like basically at that period of time means 18 something 1850 on that time, women does not really allow to education. Okay, not only the women but as well as kind of like a Shudra is not really allowed to educate. Now, what is really Shudra? Okay, in India, we have a kind of like a we have like we not okay we had not have we had this kind of like a somebody casteism system, a Brahmin, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Shudra. Is it right? Brahmin, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Shudra. Probably I'm kind of like confused regarding about Vaishya and Kshatriya. Maybe Kshatriya is in second, or I'm not really sure about that. This is kind of like a thing. The Brahmin is on the top. Okay, okay. Let me do. If you not really understand what is at least this thing. So these are the four category of the people. Okay, Brahmin means like that the people who are kind of like a somebody like a religious leader. Okay, like a pope or kind of like a something that key like the person who could talk to the god. Probably this might be kind of like a really good kind of like example. Those people are Brahmin people. Okay, in India we call them Brahmin. Okay, yeah. And Brahmin people are associated with a kind of like a lot of kind of like a knowledge about kind of like assembly the uh, god and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So these are the Brahmin. Okay, these are the Brahmin, very top layer. Okay, sorry, above them, above the Brahmin, there is a kind of like a layer, top layer too, and that top layer called king and queen and things like that, a royal family. Okay, so that royal family is on the above the kind of like a Brahmin. Okay, yeah. But Brahmin is a kind of like a one of the top layer. Okay, yeah. Like a royal family has always been royal family. Okay, so they never been changed. So basically they don't really have a category, they are always in the top. Okay, yeah. But these are kind of like a four classes. Okay, so Brahmin is on the top. Okay, also Brahmin people are allowed to do education. Basically it's really necessity for them to do education. Okay, why? Because of that key okay, yeah, let me kind of like basically this is na, I have to be kind of like a tell you everything regarding about that. Like I have to kind of like give you context. You might not understand. Okay. In India, we had like that key. If you are born in Shudra's family, then you are meant to do a Shudra. If you are born in Kshatriya's family, then you are meant to do a fight the war and things and that. Kshatriya means like that warrior. Okay, yeah. Vaishya means like that ki if you are born in Vaishya, then you have to do a kind of like a some business or things and that and that. If you're born in Brahmin, then you have to become a Brahmin. Okay, so these are classes is not just a kind of like a classes. These are classes regarding about their work. Okay, yeah. So Brahmin people, their work should supposed to be kind of like a do the like a religious activity. Okay, all the time religious activity, kind of like a things and that. Okay. Then Kshatriya, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, sorry, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Okay, yeah. So Kshatriya means kind of like a warrior. They have to be fight. Okay, yeah. Fight the wars and things and that and that. Okay. And they have to do a job. If you're born in Kshatriya, then you have to do a you have to become this warrior. Okay, yeah. Vaishya means like that kind of like a people who are kind of like doing a business and things and that and that. Okay, selling something or that and that. So when you're born in that particular category of the people, you have to do that particular job. And Shudra is one of the lowest layer. Okay, yeah, like one of the bottom layer. And the bottom layer should supposed to be kind of like a does not really have any rights to education. Okay, not a woman, not a man, they not have any kind of like right for education. Okay, yeah. They only have to kind of like a serve all those kind of like a three classes of people. Okay, serve means what? Like a basically is this thing, cleaning their home, cleaning their toilet, cleaning their like cleaning the cleaning part. Okay, mostly is this thing that farmers are mostly in the kind of like a Shudra. Okay, yeah. They have to kind of like a make a food, whatever the food that they kind of like a generate, they give the food to the kind of like a top player and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So these are kind of like some classes. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule is actually born in Shudras. Okay, yeah. Mahatma Jyotiba Phule is actually born in Shudras, and somehow he kind of like a something like he doesn't really have any rights to education, but still he fought for it, and he kind of like a somebody did his education, like he kind of like a get the education till the 7th standard, 7 or 8 standard probably. Like you might kind of like a think that dude, 7th standard just nothing really at all. But try to think about that. This is kind of like a somebody like 1850 I'm talking about. Okay, yeah. Almost like a 200 year ago. Okay, 250 year ago. So which is kind of like a lot more than that. Okay, so basically is this saying that the Mahatma Jyotiba Phule is actually kind of like a learn, and Mahatma Jyotiba Phule is a kind of like a realize something. Let me tell you one thing now. Sometimes now we don't know the worst thing. Okay, let me kind of like a tell you. Right now, I am from 2026. Okay, yeah. And I do know that classism system, that kind of like a Kshatriya, Shudra and things and that kind of like a classified people is a kind of like a completely wrong. Okay, yeah. Why am I saying this thing? Why am I saying this thing? Because I seen the bright part and bright part without it. Like it's a kind of like a thing that okay, you don't really understand about the realization. Okay, let me kind of like explain to you in as simple as possible as it can. Okay, so let's just say you are you are a girl, and you are kind of like a fall in love with a particular guy. Okay, yeah. That guy is also love you. Okay, yeah. But the problem is that that guy is a very toxic, like a really toxic, really like kind of like somebody like whatever the extreme level of toxicity, he was that. Okay, he loves you, but with a kind of like a something very toxic kind of like a things and that. Okay, you kind of like a fight every day, but you kind of like a manage to control the fight and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now what exactly is this thing that if you are a woman and you are love this particular guy, okay, yeah, you are kind of like a fighting, but you are kind of like a still continue your relationship. Why? Is because of that you don't really have realization that what is exactly the good relationship. Okay, yeah. Because you think that relationship means always fighting, always yelling at each other and things and that, because she is kind of like facing that thing. Okay, yeah. So let me tell you one thing now. When you not have the realization, then that toxic relationship is become your normal. Okay, yeah. So so that toxic relationship is became your normal. So this is what realization is actually really important. Because of that, ki you need to know that ki something is wrong is only when you realize something is right. Okay, yeah. Like I don't know, it's a kind of like a very stupid to understand. Okay, let me kind of like explain it in simple language. Okay, yeah. There is a road. Okay, there is a road, a very cobbled road. Okay, yeah. You cannot able to drive your car very much properly. You cannot able to drive any kind of like a vehicle. Okay, yeah. But this is the road that you have. Okay, yeah. And you haven't really seen the kind of like a very perfect road. Okay, yeah. Like you actually seen this kind of like a road is actually exists, and you might think this is a road and this is kind of like a road should supposed to be. So basically that cobble road is became your normal. Okay, yeah. But suddenly you went to the city and you are kind of like a simply kind of like a kind of like a going through very such a road which is very smooth. Okay, yeah. So then you realize, dude, this road is much better than my cobbled road. Okay, yeah. So basically, what exactly is this thing? What I try to understand, like that cobbled road is a wrong road. Is not right road. It's completely destroy. Like basically, the road that I have is completely wrong. The only thing I realize when I see a right road, when I see the smooth road, when I see the kind of like a somebody asphalt and kind of like a things road. So do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? The realization is only happen when you see something right stuff, when you see something kind of like a bright. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this thing, if you are never been in really good relationship, that toxic relationship is always became your normal. Okay, yeah. And this realization is kind of like a very essential. You understand the concept of realization, this is very much essential. Because if you not really understand the realization point, then you might not understand this another point of perspective. You understand the road na, from road point of perspective. If you haven't really seen the good road, you kind of like a thing that that cobbled road is kind of like a normal road. Like for you, this kind of like a very normal. Okay, yeah. But if you like a till you kind of like a went into the kind of like a such a road which is kind of like a very smooth, then you realize that that smooth road is kind of like a much more better than the cobbled road. Okay, yeah. So basically, the cobbled road is kind of like a wrong is only when you realize when you drive your car in a smooth road. So this is what it is. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, on that period of time, 1850 or something like that, the Shudras are kind of like doing their work. Okay, yeah. Now at that time, they don't know the value of education. They don't know how to supposed to make their life much more better. They don't know nothing really about. They think they born for serve other classes of people. Okay, yeah. And they think this is their normal. Kind of like somebody that cobbled road. Okay, that I already mentioned to you. Okay, yeah. So they think that the kind of like somebody, this is kind of like somebody they exist is because of that ki they have to kind of like somebody do this kind of like something that this is our normal. Okay, yeah. Like a serving other classes of people, serving Brahmins, serving Kshatriyas, classes of people, serving a kind of like a Vaishyas people and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. And basically is this thing, when we are kind of like somebody serve, that means we don't really have any rights to say and things and that and that. And whatever the other people says, we just have to accept this thing. Okay, yeah. So for those people, realization or making them realization that you are wrong is very difficult. Very, 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 very almost difficult. Okay, yeah. If you not really understand difficulty, then again I'm gonna tell you. Okay, yeah. Okay. If I am saying, okay, yeah, let's just say, same example, cobbled road and smooth road. Okay, yeah. The people who are kind of like driving their car or driving their kind of like somebody driving their vehicle on that cobbled road. Okay, yeah. So those are kind of like a couple of people. Okay, yeah. I kind of like somebody tell them, like, sir, why are you kind of like driving your vehicle on this cobbled road? Okay, yeah, this is completely wrong, completely like you have to kind of like fix it and things and that. And those people will gonna say, why do we supposed to fix that cobbled road? This is our normal road, we should supposed to do this thing. Okay, yeah, why those people kind of like say this thing? Because they haven't really seen the smooth road. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, let me tell you one thing now. The only and only they will kind of like accept to make that cobbled road smooth road when they kind of like see the smooth road. Okay, yeah. But you, how do you supposed to see them? Like a kind of like you have to kind of like somebody show them a smooth road, right? But yeah, there is a kind of like a possibility that this might not be possible or something like that. Then in that situation, how do you supposed to convince those people that you have to make that cobble road a smooth road? It's very difficult, literally difficult, because like a convincing is a kind of like something you cannot make a road, you cannot able to convince. Road is a kind of like another part of it. Okay, and this is what kind of like is this thing, because at that time Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and Savitribai Phule are trying to convince the Shudras people that they should supposed to do education, because if you do education, then you will kind of like simply see the world in better way. You understand that what is actually life and things and that and that. Okay, so and they fought for that. Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and Savitribai Phule, they kind of like fought for that. They kind of like fought for that ki education is a kind of like a very important rights, and our Shudras people are kind of like should supposed to be kind of like a simply learn, educate and things and that, and they fight for that. They fight for their entire life and things and that and that. And this is kind of like a things that I'm trying to tell you. Okay, yeah. Do you understand the concept regarding about who is actually Savitribai Phule and what is at least this thing and that and that? Okay, yeah. But why am I kind of like talking about this thing? Okay, yeah. I don't know, but okay. So basically, is this thing, na? I was actually kind of like doing my dinner and kind of like assembly. This dialogue, Jyotiba Phule kind of like said. Okay, yeah. Again, I mentioned I love this line, by the way. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna kind of like explain this kind of like word by word what does that mean. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna kind of like repeat this line again. Okay, yeah. विद्ये विना मती गेली, मती विना नीती गेली, नीती विना गती गेले, गती विना वित्त गेले, वित्त विना शूद्र खचले, इतके सारे अनर्थ एका अविद्येने केले. Let me kind of like simply describe you everything what is actually this thing. The first line, by the way, this entire text is in Marathi language. Okay, yeah. Still, these Marathi language are far too old. Sometimes I don't really understand some of the words. Okay, yeah. But still, I might knew it, some sort of words, but still I try to figure it out. Oh yeah. Okay, so first line is that Vidya vina gati geli. Okay, yeah. So what exactly it means? Vidya means education, gati means growth. Okay, yeah. So without education, you cannot get growth. Okay, yeah. This is the exact meaning. First line. Second line. Mati vina. Vidya vina. Sorry. Again, I'm completely wrong. Okay, yeah. Like sometimes, even if I know Marathi, but I like this Marathi is kind of like far too old, and I do understand. But again, yeah. Vidya vina mati geli. Okay, yeah. Vidya means education. Mati means knowledge. Okay, it's not like a knowledge, like how much knowledge that you have. Okay, yeah. Mati means like how much knowledge that you have. Mati. I like it's very hard to explain. Okay, yeah. So basically, is this thing when you not have a kind of like a education, you might not get educated. Okay, yeah. Like simple logic, right? Yeah. If you don't know what is actually A for apple, then you don't read, right? So basically, without education, you kind of like experience lack of knowledge. Okay, this is the first line. Second line, mati vina niti geli. Okay, so mati means I already mentioned knowledge. Okay, And niti means like that. Niti means like that ki niti means like that ki how you behave, in a society. Okay, like is it exactly like niti? Yeah, somewhat something niti. Yeah, somewhat something like that. Now, how you supposed to behave in kind of like a somebody in society and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So basically, this word says when you not have education, you are not getting knowledge. When you are not getting knowledge, you are not behaving properly in society. Okay, yeah, not behaving properly in society. Okay, yeah. Okay, let me tell you a thing. Not behaving properly in society, that is also another different terminology. Okay, yeah. Like okay, I'm gonna kind of like explain this thing. Not behave good in the society means what? Okay, take a kind of like a criminal charges. Okay, most of the criminal that are actually exist, take a average. Okay, yeah, 80 to 70% of the criminal are not educated. Okay, yeah. So basically this thing, not having education, it means to be kind of like a not doing right thing in the society, doing something wrong thing like a robbery or kind of like a somebody stealing something or kind of like a whatnot. Okay, yeah. I'm talking about the average. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing that key not having knowledge, sorry, not having education. When you not have education, you will not gonna get knowledge. When you are not have knowledge, you are not behaving well in the society. Okay, yeah. Now third line is niti vina gati geli. Okay, yeah. Now niti means what? Niti I already mentioned. Niti means how you behave in the society. Okay, yeah. And gati geli means growth. Okay, yeah. So when you are not behaving good in the society, you will kind of like a get lack of growth. Okay, or not like a having less growth. Okay, yeah, or maybe not having growth. Like basically let's just imagine that key like a people who are not behaving properly in the society will kind of like a create chaos will gonna happen. Chaos means kind of like a somebody which is inversely proportional to the growth. Okay, growth will not gonna happen. Okay, yeah. Again mention lack of education creates lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge creates kind of like a something not behave good in the society probably. Okay, yeah. Not behaving good in the society creates less growth. Okay, yeah. Not having growth or less growth. Okay, yeah. Now fourth line is that gati vina vitta gele. Gati vina vitta gele. Gati means like that, as I mentioned, growth. So when you not having growth, you will not gonna earn money. Vitta means money. Okay, yeah, vitta means kind of like a money. So when you are not having growth, you will not gonna get money. Means like that in a society, when the society is in chaos, society will kind of like a lose the money. Okay, yeah, like a wars and things and that. In the war, chaos will gonna happen. When the chaos will gonna happen, the society or country will lose the money. Okay, yeah. So when you not have growth, you will not gonna earn money. Okay, yeah. This is the kind of like a fourth line. And fifth line is that vitti vina shudra khachale. Okay, vitti vina shudra khachale. Vitta vina means like vitta means money. Okay, yeah. Not having a kind of like a money. When you not have a money, then shudra khasle. Shudra means like that, the as I mentioned, the lower bottom class of the society, shudra. Okay, yeah. They khasle means like that ki they just kind of like a like khasle means khasle means like a flat or drop down, or maybe something that ki destroy, or maybe something that ki like basically like destroyed probably. Yeah, like a without money they just become destroyed. Like a who they shudra, the bottom class people, they are kind of like a destroyed. Okay, yeah. Again I mention everything. Okay, yeah. So basically this thing, when you not have a educated, you will not gonna get knowledge. When you are not getting a knowledge, when you are not getting a knowledge, you are not behaving well in society. When you are not behave well in society, you will kind of like a little less growth or negative growth or not having a growth. When you're not having a growth, you will kind of like lose the money. Okay, yeah. And when you lose the money, then you destroyed. Specifically, then you destroyed means like Shudra is actually destroyed. Okay, they kind of like specifically mention Shudra khachle. Okay, yeah. And the last line, okay, yeah. इतके सारे अनर्थ एका अविद्येने केले. All those kind of like some wrong thing actually happen is because of lack of education. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like a simply that ki Mahatma Jyotiba kind of like Mahatma Jyotiba Phule kind of like said those words, and that line is kind of like a hit me so hard. Okay, let me tell you one thing. I am from Shudras community. Okay, yeah. Like basically this thing, it's not really that ki Shudras community means like that ki I'm kind of like a somebody that ki like a doing something like a so like a no, it's not like my like the way that I live is kind of like a like good. Okay, yeah. Like Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar kind of like gave us rights, so that's why I'm kind of like live the life the way that kind of like really as beautiful as possible. Okay, yeah. But my grandfather is a kind of like somebody, they are properly a Shudras. Okay, my father's fathers. Okay, yeah. So my father's fathers, my grandfather, they are serving to kind of like somebody, some sort of patil, something like that. Okay, yeah. So yeah, and my grandfather means fathers are kind of like somebody believe that they should supposed to be kind of like somebody, they are born for kind of like serving others, and yeah, they are kind of like doing that. Okay, yeah. But after that, their kids means my father and my father's brother, माझे मोठे वडील, they kind of like educated because of that Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar gave the rights to them, to the Shudras community of the people. Okay, yeah. And they kind of like get educated. My father became teacher. माझे मोठे वडील means my father's big brother kind of like became a scientist. Okay, yeah. And they achieved a lot of growth in their life, and because of them, sorry about the kind of like my friend is actually called me. Okay, yeah. Okay, so where was I? I was actually so while I was kind of like doing my dinner, okay, and basically this thing, that line is kind of like a really kind of like a really hit me. Okay, yeah, because I am also belong to the scheduled caste family, and basically my grandfather, okay, I already mentioned this thing. Okay, yeah. So basically this thing na ki like this line is kind of like really hit me very hard. Okay, yeah. And there is a one thing that I do realize, okay, that ki like how much is importance of education. Okay, like basically this thing na, let me tell you one thing. At that time 1850, okay, yeah, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule kind of like educated till the 7th standard, 7 or 8th standard, whatever, I'm not really sure about the exact qualification. Okay, yeah. But they kind of like get the education. Okay, yeah. And they get the education and they aware of their society, they aware of everything what is actually happening wrong in the society, and they fight for that. Okay, yeah. Now in today's world we have education, literally we have education, we have schools, college, whatnot we have. Okay, yeah. But the problem is that na ki I'm talking about specifically in Indian point of perspective. Okay, yeah. Basically this na, we don't really have that quality of education, because let me tell you one thing na, in 1850, okay, at that time being educated is hard enough to kind of like somebody achieve your goals and things and that. Like basically at that time na, education is not associated with the growth. Okay, so is not associated with the kind of like a job and things like that. Okay, yeah. Since the industrial revolution happened and we are kind of like started associating with the kind of like somebody education to a kind of like a somebody job and things like that, then the education became business. I'm specifically talking about in Indian point of perspective. In India, we have kind of like a coaching center, we have kind of like a, some private schools and private colleges and things and that, which is kind of like a, somebody teaching students for money. Okay, and basically this thing that na ki they just do their business. In right now in India, education is kind of like somewhat something business, and that is true. Okay, yeah, and we are getting education. Okay, yeah, but that education doesn't really create people like Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, people like Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, people like like something that they could kind of like simply add something value to society. Okay, yeah, there are so many kind of like so many very legit educated people, but they do something such a stupid stuff that I just question myself that ki what is exactly kind of like a something that ki what is exactly the education that they get. Like people are actually fought for that. People actually fought for education and things like that. But some people are kind of like somebody just, I don't know. Then I realized that okay, yeah, like basically this na, I realize like basically I'm recording this artifact. I'm kind of like talking to myself, the self-realization and self kind of like I ask question to myself thousands of time. Okay, yeah, and I realized something. Mahatma Jyotirao Phule never really kind of like something um, did education for job. They never really did education for kind of like somewhat something that ki like a like 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 basically this thing na ki it's a kind of like a thing that na ki okay, let me kind of like understand in even more simple language in today's world. Okay, in today's world people are kind of like doing lot of education for only for one reason, to get a job, to get a money, to get a things and that is completely wrong, like wrong in so many ways. And why am I saying this thing? Let me kind of like tell you. Okay, yeah, is because of that ki when you are trying to associate or attach education with something, then education became a business. Okay, yeah, and another thing is that na ki when you are trying to kind of like do the education, then and that education kind of like is only responsible for how much money that you earn, then you create a kind of like a ranking system. Okay, yeah, so that which one is actually better, because everyone is kind of like educating right now. So we kind of like develop the marking system, we develop the kind of like a percentage, we develop the grade system, we develop the kind of like a something the classes, A class, B class and things and that. But even after all those things, even after all those grades, there is no guarantee that the people who kind of like get a really good grades, they can, that particular person can add something really value in the society. And what is actually wrong thing? The wrong thing is that key our education system. Because let me tell you one thing now, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar or Mahatma Jyotirao Phule or all those kind of like some freedom fighter who kind of like get the education, they understand the the meaning of the life from the education. Okay, it's a very hard to explain regarding about that. Okay, they didn't really educate A for apple, B for ball, or 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. No, they didn't really educate like that. They educate like something that ki why does we call apple for A? Why does we call ball for B? Why does 2 plus 3 is not is equal to 7? Why is 5? No one asks that question. And basically is basically education, it means to ask question in a such a thing that kind of like a something no one asks. And that is a kind of like a something that people are forgetting. Okay, that's why innovation actually happen less. Like basically, like we are living in such a world where innovation actually happen. In 2026, we are kind of like seeing such a world where innovation Oh, oh boy. Oh, I ate a bug. Choo choo. Oh, oh, it's not a bug. It's something that I don't know what exactly is this thing. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Oh, I was saying that ki like basically it's this thing na ki Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, or Savitribai Phule, they don't really kind of like assembly basically A for apple and B for ball. They ask question why we represent A for apple, why we represent B for ball, why 2 plus 3 is not equal to 7. Okay, they ask kind of like some question that ki like a like like I don't know, yaar. I'm not really understanding that ki is this kind of like a somebody is this thing happen is because of education or not having education? Because let me tell you one thing now. In 1850, at that period of time, okay, yeah, people are not have the education. Okay, yeah. So it is obviously kind of like a reason that ki people are not really kind of like a getting successful is because of they didn't really get the education, right? Yeah. But in today's world, we have education. We are providing education in so many ways and things and that and that. But still, people are not kind of like successful. What is actually reason for that? And I think from my point of perspective, I might be wrong, but what I realize that ki like we've been focused on education divided by kind of like a mark system, exam system, ranking system, grade system, and whatnot. Okay, and that is a kind of like a somewhat something wrong. Okay, from my point of perspective, because of that, na ki when you are kind of like a doing study or doing any kind of like education just for marks, just for entrance exam, just for some sort of grade, just for something, then your whole importance is actually focused on grade system, mark system, percentage system, number system, entrance exam. Then you don't really focus on like what should you supposed to know. Okay, yeah. Like basically when I was kind of like assembly engineering, diploma engineering, one of my friend or most of the time I was kind of like assembly focus on kind of like exam is actually happening. So 1 month before we should supposed to be kind of like do the study and things and that and that and that. Yeah. Like yes. And this is continuously growing. Like a let I'm from India, and basically existing now there are so many people are pouring their entire blood and soul for cracking UPSC exam. Like literally blood and soul pouring on cracking the UPSC exam. They are putting so much effort to crack the UPSC exam. UPSC's exam is a kind of like one of the biggest exam in the India. Okay, yeah. And the people who kind of like crack that exam, you will become IS officer. IS officer is a kind of like somebody responsible for entire district and yeah, growth of the district and things and that. So basically, like for the UPSC, UPSC is a kind of like one of the biggest exam in India. It is also one of the second toughest exam in the world. Okay, yeah. And people are kind of like somebody putting lot of like they are putting so much effort in UPSC exam. We have so many web series, so many movies are actually available, are exist is for the people who kind of like put the effort for cracking UPSC exam and things and that. Okay, now I have to be asked question to myself. Okay, if the person who is a kind of like a putting that much effort to crack UPSC exam or any kind of like a government exam, okay, after that exam, after that particular person crack the exam, does that particular person will take some sort of risk to do something different or do something different, do something like okay, let me kind of like give you context, na? Okay, when you wanted to change the world, when you want to do something right in the society, there is a always resistance will happen, always a resistance will happen. Okay, yeah. And this is very much essential, by the way, because when you try to achieve something which is not actually available, or like what is resistance is always been, it's a natural process, right? Yeah. So basically, let me kind of like tell you. Okay, yeah. So people who are kind of like a something responsible for growth, responsible for country's growth and things and that are IS officer, because IS officer have a control of the entire district and things and that, right? Then if the IS officer put that much effort to crack the UPSC exam, will they take risk their job to kind of like a add something value in their locality, in their district, or in their growth? Will they add any kind of like a growth? No. Why would they? Because they put a lot of effort to crack the exam, crack the UPSC and things and that. Why they will kind of like do any kind of like effort and things and that? They just kind of like do the what kind of like upper says, and they just do it. They just follow the order. And when you follow the order, you will not add value into society, because simple logic is that. Okay, because basically when you follow the order, like basically I'm not saying that following the order is kind of like a wrong thing. Following order is very essential. Okay, that is very true. Okay, yeah, in the military, following the order is actually essential. Okay, hierarchy is very much essential. I'm not saying is that basically it's this thing that UPSC or IS officer shouldn't supposed to follow the order. No, I'm saying is that the people who are kind of like simply responsible for adding the value in the society, why would they add any kind of like a value to the society? Because they put a lot of effort to crack the exam and things and that. I think that na give, like basically why does we kind of like a distributed education in exam, ranking, marks? Why does we do that? Why not we just learn for wanted to learn? Okay, yeah, why we kind of like started knowing something stuff? Because we wanted to know that stuff. Why does people wants to know how does IC engine work? Just because of that it will kind of like a crack the question in a kind of like exam, and so that I will kind of like a get 7 marks into that thing. No, just wanted to know how the IC engine work. If you know that thing, then you will kind of like a better understanding regarding about how the IC engine work. And when you know about IC engine work, you might kind of like add a value, upgrade the IC engine work. You kind of like upgrade the design or things and that. Okay, yeah. Why not we kind of like do the education for getting to know, not for the marks? And that is a kind of like a things. And basically this thing, that's why I built the Gurukul. Okay, I basically I didn't build at yet. Okay, yeah, but I wanted to. I want that like I'm belong to the India, and in India there is a lot of kind of like some of the things are actually fucked up. Education is one of the biggest fucked up. Okay, yeah, we are almost like a 1.4 billion people, and we are not kind of like utilizing their full potential. Education is the only one can kind of like somebody like express their potential to the full throttle. But our education is kind of like so crippled and so not good that it's just not. And that's why I just kind of like somebody is saying, that's why I just have this idea regarding about Gurukul. I already mentioned regarding about Gurukul and things and that. Okay, yeah. Why am I kind of like recording the artifact? Is because of that when I heard this line, when the Mahatma Jyotiba Phule kind of like said this line on that serial. Okay, yeah. And this is very like deep inside of me. Okay, yeah. Because of that, even after we are getting a knowledge, but still we are kind of like a vidya vina mati geli, मती विना नीती गेली, नीती विना गती गेली, गती विना वित्त गेले, वित्त विना शूद्र खचले. इतके सारे अनर्थ एका अविद्येने केले. And after I understand this thing, and I'm kind of like a giving the knowledge to the people, but after all those things, conditions are still same. That ki vidya vina mati gili. Still, people are kind of like so stupid even after they kind of like get the education. Okay, yeah. Okay, then niti giri. Niti means like that, not behaving something really good. There we have so many example that so many kind of like a good people or educated people are kind of like a doing something stupid shit. Okay, yeah. Like we have so many examples too. Okay, yeah. Then basically this thing niti vina gati geli means like that ki those kind of like somebody, I don't know, yeah. Like basically is this thing na ki I'm not kind of like somebody try to prove my point, but I'm s- I'm, I'm seeing this reality in my life, in all around me. Okay, yeah. And sometimes I realize that ki in that period of time, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule kind of like initiate Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, Savitribai Phule initiate the education in India. Okay, yeah. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, who are kind of like a fight for us, they kind of like give the rights to Shudras, to us, to kind of like do the education things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Then after that, am I that particular person? Am I that kind of like a particular person who could kind of like a do this thing? Because I'm not kind of like a somebody just buttering myself that I could able to be do this thing. I'm actually kind of like a somebody standing myself like I'm not kind of like a putting myself into the line of such a people who are kind of like a somebody do some sort of changes. I don't want that, and this is not my kind of like initiative. I never really wanted to be kind of like a somebody being part of those people, but somehow I realized that ki I think I have to be do this thing. Like whatever the people might gonna say or things or whatnot, but I have to be do this thing because I don't know, dude. Like basically, I seen the problem and I could solve the problem. Why I can't solve the problem? Why not people kind of like a see the I see? Like I am not that educated. I'm not even graduate. I whatever the knowledge that I have through this artifact and things and that. That's it. Okay. Why not people are asked the question that I had? Why not they kind of like do this thing? Am I the only one kind of like seeing this thing? Am I the only one who's kind of like seeing that realization? Am I the only one who kind of like sees that thing that I am kind of like somebody driving my vehicle on cobbled road? I think that na ki one of the biggest important thing is that na realization. And every century there is a kind of like some sort of person who kind of like somebody came and kind of like give those realization that ki you are driving a car on cobbled road, you should substitute driving smoother road, because smoother road is always been upgraded. We have to be shown that ki there is a better way, and after we getting that better way there is also another better way. That is called human growth. We have to go from 1 to 2 to 3, then we realize that okay, the 4 is actually bigger than 3, okay, 5 is bigger than 4, okay, 6 is bigger than 5, okay, 7 is bigger than 6. This is what it is. This is what kind of like a growth comes from. And that growing from digital, growing from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, this kind of like a realization actually happened in kind of like a somebody that ki one particular person kind of like a says this thing that ki no, we have to grow, we have to be kind of like a driving our car from smooth road, not cobble road. Am I that particular person? Am I that kind of like a particular person to kind of like a give the realization to the people that ki we are driving a car on cobbled road, we should supposed to be driving smoother road? I don't know, but I think that now I have to do this thing. I have to be kind of like a give them like a like I might not change today's people, but I might gonna change tomorrow's people. I might give the proper education regarding about that key what is actually better way to understand or getting knowledge or understand more probably. I don't know. All right, this is it. I should supposed to be end here. Thank you.